Hello, fourth graders. Well, today we're going to learn about area and perimeter. Now, I'm pretty sure you had a little bit of this last year, and you were probably a little bit confused. It depends on how your teacher taught it. It also depends on how you internalized it in your head because these things tend to get balled up. There are only two of them, and they don't sound anything alike. They mean nothing alike, but they use the same dimensions. And so this is where the confusion begins. We're going to do this and see if I can unravel this for you. They're actually a pretty simple concept, so pay close attention to the detail that I offer. So, area, for our purpose, is going to start with a simple rectangle. Area I'm going to represent with red, and perimeter I'm going to represent with blue. Area is the surface covered by the rectangle. What does that mean? Well, let's say, for example, in the real world, the surface could be the top of a table. The surface could be the floor. For example, as I sit here in my living room, I've got travertine tiles in my kitchen, and I've got vinyl flooring in my living room and dining room. And so if I wanted to buy materials for those jobs, I would actually have to have the area that I need to cover with those tiles. So picture that in your head. Covering the floor with tiles. That would be area. Perimeter, well, and there's area right there in your drawing. It's the surface. Perimeter is different. You're measuring distance around the rectangle. So for example, if I go back to my house and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I'm going to have to buy a baseboard to put along the wall. You know, that stuff that your mom or your dad paints every now and then because because you can't seem to stop from maybe hitting it with your toys or something like that. Most of them are white, some of them are colored, but in my case it's white. And it's about 4 inches, 5 inches tall, and it's strictly straight up against the wall. So I would need to be able to basically encircle my rooms with it. And so this is called the perimeter. On our drawing here, perimeter looks like this. Perimeter is the distance around the rectangle. So, to review, area is the surface that I cover with the tile. Perimeter is the distance around that I have to use baseboard to put on the walls. So, perimeter outside, area inside. How to? What do you need to make those calculations? Well, you need something that we call dimensions. Dimensions happen to be the length. In this case, this rectangle is 8 centimeters. We're just going to pick those units because we already have had a chance to get familiar with them in our last few lessons on the previous module. And so what I've got here is I have 8 centimeters across. And if you look really closely, and maybe you can't see it, but you can see little points that are right in one in each of those little grid boxes. And I counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that distance is 8 centimeters. My width, and I'm going to back that up because we're not ready for those words. So this was length right here. And I'm going to choose a different color. I'm going to choose black. So our length was this direction, right? And just in case you're wondering, length also happens to show up here. So your length is that distance from the left to the right. The other dimension is what we call width. And in order to fit this in here, let's do this. I'm going to write the word width just so you get a better idea about where that is. And that's the dimension that I've measured here with the 5 centimeters. So you have length and width. Now, when I look at area and perimeter, in fact, I'm going to do something different here. I just kind of hit on an idea. I'm going to stop this and I'm going to correct my drawing and I'll be right back with you. Okay, I'm back. So, the way that you find the area is you need to find out how much surface you're covering with all of these square tiles. Now, there's a way to do that, and it involves multiplication, and it's going to be the length. Oops, that's a horrible L. By that, I mean it's almost illegible. So I've got length here, and yes, it's written in cursive, and I'm going to be multiplying that times width. Okay, my length was 8 centimeters. You see it right here. And my width is 5 centimeters. You see it right there. So in order to get my area, in other words, to count up quickly the number of squares that are covered, I can also multiply the length times the width. I'm going to show it to you both ways, but just let me put that out there for you. Now, perimeter, a little bit different story here, and this is where it gets confusing. So I've just forewarned you. What happens is you're going to be adding length and width, but guess what? You're going to be adding length and width twice. What's that you say, Mr. C? Twice? Oops, nice W. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. And this is why. You have, and I'm going to go ahead and play this out. In fact, what I'll do here is I'll move length and width. I'll move this to this side right here. I know that's hard to see. And I'm going to take length and just bump it down here just a wee bit like that to give myself more space. And then we're going to talk about area. Well, area looks like that. It's 8 times 5, which is 40. If you don't believe me, you can count each one of those little hash marks that I made. That's 40 of those bad boys. The fast way to figure that out is to know that you have 8 in each row, 8 tiles in each row, and you have 5 rows. 5 rows of 8 tiles is a total of 40 tiles. And that's what you see right there. Oops, let's use red. Right there, okay? That's area. If I were you, I might pause that and rewind the last minute or so of this presentation and kind of get the whole idea of area solidly in your head before moving on to perimeter. As you see, neither one of these calculations are ridiculously difficult because they're basically just, at least at this point, they're just math facts. The hard thing isn't the arithmetic. The hard thing is knowing which formula to use when. Because I mean to tell you, and I've taught this to 5th graders too, for some reason, kids are not necessarily ready to grasp the abstract nature of this. Not everyone is. Most kids are, but some kids aren't. So don't feel bad if this first day that we go through this, you're thinking to yourself, OMG, Mr. C, I'm not quite getting it. It's okay. Give yourself time. Everybody gets it eventually. Now, perimeter, a little bit different story, obviously. Perimeter is going to be, now remember how I said that your length, you have 2 lengths and you have 2 widths because you're traveling around. Let's go back up to our original drawing here. Remember how I drew the blue line around the rectangle, and that's my perimeter? So that means I have to count width twice and area twice. This is what it looks like. There's 2 times my length and 2 times my width. I have to add all those dimensions together because I want to know what the distance is all the way around the room. I'm again going back to the analogy I use with my living room. So there's your first example. I'm going to show you another worked example. You may already have this. If you feel like you've already got this, you can go ahead and go on to the homework set. Yes, I said homework set, and do those problems. it's actually going to take you like no time to do this work set. So if this goes well, then I'm actually going to move us into doing some hands-on application with word problems. I've got my fingers crossed, but I haven't counted on it. And if I need to, I'll do another lesson for you guys on the Doceri then tomorrow. So moving right along, if you're ready to go to work on this stuff, go ahead and hit the problems in the homework set. Otherwise, listen up. Worked example. I just randomly drew a rectangle here and gave you the dimensions. The dimensions are 7 meters long and 4 meters wide. I'm going to find the area. If you recall, the area was about the number of tiles. Now, oops, and that 7 kind of snuck in there on me. The area is the number of tiles that I need to cover the floor. Okay, remember how I did this calculation the fast way? Yes, I could add up all those squares, but that's like a total waste of time when I can just as easily use multiplication. So I have a length of 7 meters. I'm going to multiply that times 4. Why? Because I have 4 rows of 7 tiles. 4 rows of 7 tiles. There's 1 row, and you've got 3 more just like it, right? Okay. I'm going to make those dashed little marks go away. That's 28. So it's a total of 28 tiles. Now, I will eventually get into the units, but for now, all you need to know is that number is 28. In case you're curious, or in case you already know, yes, you guessed, it is 28 meters squared or square meters. Either one of those names is okay. Now let's go to perimeter. Now I'm going to use the same dimensions, but the difference here, and I'm going to back this up for you guys. The difference here is, so there are my dimensions. And remember how last time I said you have to account for both length on the top and length on the bottom, and then width on the left and width on the right. In other words, distance around. You have to add all those up together. So I'm going to get 4 plus the 7 plus the 4 plus the 7, right? The 4 and the 7, the 4 and the 7. And that's going to give me 11 plus 11, which is the same as 22. So my perimeter is 22 and my area is 28. Those can be the same, but they're fairly unique circumstances in that there has to be a certain type of dimension ratio that happens with the rectangle for those to be the same number. They are never the same units, and this is part of what makes the distinction. And I'm just going to go ahead and spell this out for you right here. So if I were to do this, let's say for a 5th grader, I would say, okay, what's the area? The 5th graders would say, well, Mr. C, I know that area is always square units, and I will talk to you guys about this later. This is going to be 28 meters squared, or 28 square meters. Oops, nice cue. Thank you. Square meters. They mean the same thing, okay? Perimeter, on the other hand, oops, and I'll back up and put my stop in there. There we go. Perimeter, oops, and no. Perimeter is going to be 22. And because it's distance is always measured in a straight line. I know, some of you would say, well, Mr. C, I can measure a curved line. I dare you. You're going to use an instrument that calculates based on the linear qualities of the distance, which means from let's say point A to point B. So this is actually just straight up meters. And remember how we talked about this when we were doing the meter, centimeter, kilometer conversions, that meters measure distance. So here you go. Area was surface, perimeter was distance. If it helps, go all the way back to the first. In fact, I'm going to do that. Go back to the very first slide, and it looks like that. You should cement those definitions and those pictures in your head. That snapshot right there is golden for your purposes. Yes, I know, it's 15 minutes